I am 84 years old, and for many years, walking felt like carrying a quiet burden that no one could see. I rarely spoke about the pain because at this stage of life, you learn to live with little discomforts here and there. Some days it was my ankles. Other days it was my knees. And sometimes my whole body seemed unwilling to move. Eventually, it reached the point where even a simple trip to buy a loaf of bread felt like a long battle. The bottoms of my feet ached. My knees made grinding noise. And climbing a single step meant stopping halfway to gather myself. Afraid of breaking something inside, I tried what most people try: pain pills, creams, and gentle exercises. A few gave temporary relief, while others only added confusion and frustration. But the pain always returned, clinging to me like an unwanted shadow that refused to let go. Then, by pure accident, I stumbled across something unexpected. It was not a new medicine or a complicated treatment. It was something as ordinary as cooking oil. Yes, cooking oil. An ingredient I had only ever imagined for frying food, never for easing the stiffness of old age. At first, I brushed it aside, thinking it was just another piece of advice people throw around. Still, I decided to try just a small teaspoon each morning. I wasn't expecting much. Yet, as the days passed, I noticed subtle changes. Getting out of bed no longer felt like my body was screaming at me. The sharp steps softened. One afternoon, without even realizing it, I walked 3 full blocks without stopping. 3 blocks. After months of barely making it across my own living room, this felt like a small miracle. This is not a secret cure or a magical solution. But for me, it gave back a piece of life I believe was lost forever. And if you or someone you love suffers from walking pain, perhaps my story might help. Before we go further, I'd love to know, how old are you? And where are you listening from? The pain that can't be seen? Pain in old age is not always loud or dramatic. It doesn't always come with cries or sudden collapses. More often, it hides in the small, ordinary moments of daily life. The strained look when rising from bed, the sigh when bending for something on a shelf, the hesitation before taking the first step up the stairs. It is as if the body itself asks for permission before moving. For me, it began with nothing more than morning stiffness. At first, I thought it was simply part of getting older, but little by little, that stiffness tightened its grip. When I stood, it felt like my legs no longer belonged to me, as though heavy stones were tied to my ankles. Soon, pain followed. It started after long days, but eventually, it was there from the very moment I sat on the side of the bed. My knees burned, the soles of my feet throbbed, and every single step became a negotiation between my bones and my willpower. I stopped going to the market. I avoided the square, and even inside my own home, I debated whether to rise for a glass of water or wait for someone else to bring it. That was when I realized the pain was stealing more than comfort. It was taking pieces of independence. Doctors gave me the standard answers: pills, supplements, physical therapy. One even said, "It's normal at your age. Just try to move more." But how could I? Every movement hurt. For a while, I believed this was my destiny, until one ordinary day, something unexpected changed my path. Failed attempts. Before I share what finally helped me, I must speak about the long stretch of days when every step felt like life itself was slipping through my hands. When pain becomes a daily companion, you are willing to try almost anything that promises even the smallest relief. And so, I went through my own series of failed attempts. I began with the most obvious choices, common painkillers like ibuprofen and acetaminophen. At first, they dulled the ache, but soon the pain came roaring back, stronger than before. as if it had only been hiding to strike again. My stomach grew sensitive, plagued with burning, nausea, and discomfort. The doctor added another prescription, a gastric protector, to shield me from the very pills meant to help. It felt like solving one problem by creating another. Then came the creams. I bought one with menthol, another with arnica, and yet another with an unpronounceable name. Each tube carried promises of miracles on the label, but none touched the true pain beneath my skin. At best, they cooled the surface, but deep in the joints, everything remained unchanged. I even tried to move more, gentle stretches, senior exercise videos, slow routines designed to be safe. Some mornings I managed, but others, rising from a chair was a battle I could not win. I bought resistance bands, small weights, and was even given a stationary bike. Today, it sits in the corner of my room under a towel, gathering dust instead of memories. It wasn't lack of willpower. It was frustration doing everything right and still feeling betrayed by my own body. The money drained away too. Each cream, each doctor's visit, a weight on a pension that never increases. But the hardest part was not the wasted expense. It was realizing that none of it gave me the one thing I longed for, to walk without pain. One morning, even putting on socks broke me. I bent down. Pain surged in my back, and the socks fell to the floor. I sat there, staring at my feet, and cried not from the pain itself, but from the rage of feeling useless in my own home. The unexpected discovery: sometimes the answers to our struggles appear in the most unlikely places. For me, that moment came in a kitchen during a quiet Sunday visit from my nephew, Daniel. He lives in another town, works as a physiotherapist, and has always been fascinated by natural remedies. While we sat having tea, he noticed how slowly I rose from my chair, pressing my hands to my waist for balance and relief. "Do your knees still hurt?" he asked gently. "Every single day." I admitted, "I'm learning to live with it." He didn't argue. He just gave me a look that mixed compassion with determination. A few days later, Daniel returned holding a small bottle with no label. It was dark glass, sealed with a cork, and inside was a thick golden liquid with an earthy, toasted scent. He explained that while attending a conference abroad, he met a 90-year-old woman who walked with surprising strength. She told him this oil had been her lifelong secret. Skeptical, I listened as he urged me, "It costs you nothing. Just try a teaspoon each morning on an empty stomach." I left the bottle on my table for days, unsure whether it was foolishness or a chance worth taking. Finally, after another sleepless night, I gave in. The taste was intense, sharp, bitter, not pleasant but tolerable. I noticed nothing the first day, nor the second, but by the third morning, there was a subtle change. My body didn't feel as heavy when I stood up. That was the beginning of everything, the beginning of something different. I never believed I would find a miracle, and truthfully, I did not begin with much faith. If anything, I agreed to try simply because my nephew insisted. He had asked for nothing complicated, just 1 teaspoon of that strange oil every morning on an empty stomach. That was it. No long routines. No drastic diets. No expensive therapies, just one small habit. At first, I kept it simple. I poured a spoonful, chased it with a glass of warm water, and waited. I wasn't sure if I was doing something right or if I was even being foolish. After all the creams, pills, and exercises that had led nowhere, one more attempt didn't seem like much risk. The first 2 days were uneventful. The taste was sharp, bitter, almost biting. I swallowed with effort, grimacing each time. Still, I continued. On the third morning, something subtle changed. When I stood up from bed, my feet were not as swollen as usual. The heaviness in my ankles seemed lighter, as though the weight tied to them had been eased. I dismissed it as coincidence. But the next day, when I walked to the kitchen, I realized I hadn't leaned on the furniture along the way. My body simply moved. That night, I slept longer without waking in agony at 4 a.m. For weeks, I had dreaded those early hours, when pain stabbed through my legs. Now, I slept through until morning. By the 5th day, the difference was undeniable. I bent to pick up a napkin from the floor without gasping or planning how to rise again. Sitting and standing from the sofa no longer required the same struggle. The pain had not vanished, but it felt as though it had stepped back, loosening its grip, allowing me to breathe again. Even then, I held back my hope. I had been fooled before, thinking pain had eased only to have it return with greater force. Questions circled in my mind. Was it truly the oil? Was my mind playing tricks? Wanting so badly to believe, could it all be chance? I resisted embracing the idea too quickly. And yet, my body does not lie. Something was shifting. I stayed consistent, taking my teaspoon each morning, observing closely, almost like keeping a diary written on my bones. The odd thing was how quietly the transformation began. No one around me noticed at first. True change, the kind that matters, always starts silently. A week passed, then 2. Some aches remained, but my daily life was different. I noticed I no longer collapsed into every chair along the way. Once, even walking from the living room to the bathroom felt like a journey. Now I moved without stopping, without thinking, almost like before. In the 3rd week, I dared something I had avoided for months. I walked to the park at the end of my street. I carried my cane, but only in my hand, not as support. Step by step, I went slowly but steadily until I reached a bench. Sitting there, breathing deeply, I felt as though I was celebrating something sacred. It wasn't simply being outside, it was the victory of arriving on my own. Later, I visited my daughter who lived on the 2nd floor of a building without an elevator. Usually, she had to come down to help me climb. But that day, I gripped the handrail and made the ascent alone, pausing but never stopping. When she opened the door, her astonishment said everything. "You climbed alone?" she asked. Eyes wide. I only smiled. How could I explain an oil? A teaspoon each day, that was all. By the 4th week, even neighbors noticed. One remarked, "You look different, brighter." "What are you doing?" Her words stayed with me all day, because it wasn't only my steps that had changed. I felt lighter inside too, as though something deflated had finally lifted. And with that lightness came the return of small joys, the desire to go buy bread, to sweep the yard, to take a walk for no reason other than to feel the air. Most importantly, confidence returned, that precious belief that you can move without fear, that every step doesn't have to hurt, that even in old age, life can shift for the better. What is this oil? And why does no one use it? So what was in that little bottle that changed my days? The answer is far from new. In fact, it is something so ancient that many have simply forgotten about it. Cold-pressed mustard oil. Simple, yes, but far more powerful than I ever imagined. When my nephew first placed it in my hands, I never thought a seed so small could hold such strength. This oil has been used for centuries across countries like India and Bangladesh, where it has long been part of traditional remedies to ease stiff joints, sore muscles, and poor circulation. But let me be clear, it's not the yellow mustard you spread on a sandwich. This is a thick, dark oil with a strong, earthy aroma, extracted directly from mustard seeds without chemicals or refining. That purity is where its true value lies. Why does it matter? Because mustard oil is naturally rich in compounds that fight inflammation, such as isothiocyanates, as well as omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin E nutrients, vital for bones, tissues, and mobility. It also boosts blood flow, helping to reduce swelling and numbness in tired legs and feet. Best of all, it can be used both ways, taken by the spoon each morning or warmed slightly and massaged into aching joints before bed. In many Asian villages, elders still treat this as a nightly ritual passed from one generation to the next. So why don't we hear about it here? In the West, the tradition was lost. Modern culture trusts only what comes in boxes with labels and instructions. And without big companies to advertise it, natural solutions like this fade into silence. It may not be magic, but for me, it restored something priceless: the ability to trust my body again. Studies, science, and personal experience. I am not a doctor, and I would never claim to offer miracles, but once I began noticing the small yet undeniable changes in my own body, I felt compelled to learn why this oil, something so ordinary and available for years, could be so effective. So I started to research. I asked my nephew to share his knowledge, and I read everything I could find. What I discovered was reassuring. Cold-pressed mustard oil is not some passing fad. It has real scientific support. One study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that the compounds in mustard seeds, particularly isothiocyanates, have strong anti-inflammatory properties, showing effects similar to certain medications used for chronic pain. Another paper from the Indian Journal of Medical Research described it as a traditional but effective remedy for easing mild to moderate joint and muscle problems. But beyond the studies, I realized something important in many cultures. People never questioned whether it worked. They simply used it, year after year, generation after generation. For them, it was wisdom handed down from grandparents to grandchildren, woven into daily life. After a few weeks of using it myself, I decided to share some with friends at the senior center. At first, they looked at me with doubt, as if I was exaggerating. Then one neighbor tried it. She suffered from stiff hands every morning. I explained how to take a spoonful and also how to rub it into her joints with a warm towel. A week later, she hugged me with tears in her eyes, not because the pain was gone forever, but because she could knit again without dropping the needles. That is why I say this oil is not magic. It does not force the body. It works alongside it, calming, softening, and slowly helping recovery in its own time. How I use it today and how you can try it. Today, mustard oil has become a simple but steady part of my daily life. I do not follow any complicated rituals or special formulas. I just use it with respect, consistency, and the understanding that it is not a miracle cure, but a tool that can make life easier. Each morning before breakfast, I take a small teaspoon of the oil, followed by a glass of warm water. The flavor can be intense, at first strong, bitter, with a taste somewhere between roasted seeds and spices. But you quickly get used to it. And once the body begins to respond, the taste no longer matters. On some days, I also apply it externally. I warm a little oil between my hands and gently massage it onto my knees or lower back. When I have more time, I soak a towel in hot water, wring it out, and place it over the area I massaged. The heat and oil together calm the joints and relax the muscles. If you decide to try it, there are a few things to remember. Not all mustard oils are the same. Look for one that is cold-pressed and unrefined. Since these keep their natural medicinal properties, many versions sold only for cooking are heavily processed or mixed with other oils. And even though it is natural, speak with your doctor first, especially if you take medication or have ongoing conditions. When I told my doctor, he simply said, if it helps and does not harm you, keep going. The body often understands what science has yet to explain. For me, this oil does not erase all pain or replace medical treatment. What it does is reduce inflammation, improve movement, and bring back the lightness in each step, and that is already enough. It's not just the oil. Let me be honest with you. The oil played a role. Yes, it was the spark that pushed me forward, but it was not the only reason I regained the ability to walk with less pain. What truly made the difference was a combination of small, almost invisible habits that slowly built up into real change. The first was gentle movement. I am not talking about gyms or heavy workouts. I mean 10 minutes each morning, sometimes less. Before my body stiffened, a few easy stretches, slow circles with the ankles, swinging my arms as if swimming in the air, simple motions. But once my body came to appreciate, another change was rest. I realized it is not enough to just sleep. You must sleep well. That meant no television flickering in the background, no phone by the bed. Sometimes I gave myself a short massage with warm oil before lying down, which calmed me deeply. Sleeping better helped me wake up lighter. With less weight pressing on my bones, nutrition mattered too. I didn't become an expert or change everything overnight. I only adjusted little by little. Less fried food, less sugar, more vegetables and natural meals. I noticed that processed foods I ate out of habit, like deli meats or packaged breads, fueled inflammation. Removing them gradually made my body thankful. Alone, none of these steps felt dramatic, but together, moving gently, resting fully, eating mindfully, and using the oil, they reshaped my days. It was as if my body whispered, "At last, you are helping me from the inside, too." And that taught me something powerful. It is never just about one remedy. It is about treating the body with patience, respect, and dignity. Even in old age, don't resign yourself to pain. Do not accept pain as your destiny. Passing a certain age does not mean everything is lost. He once felt hopeless when treatments failed and my body seemed unwilling to respond. But I learned that solutions are not always hidden in complexity or prescriptions. Sometimes they are found in simple, forgotten things. This oil did not cure me or restore youth, but it gave me something greater: dignity, relief, and the courage to try again, even after 80. Small changes can open the door to healing. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of someone dear, or gave you hope for yourself, I encourage you to pass it along to someone who might need it. And in the comments, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever tried a natural remedy that made a real difference? What worked for you? By sharing, we can bring back pieces of wisdom that should never have been forgotten. Remember this: if at 84 I can find a way to walk again without constant pain, then you too can discover something that works for you. It is never too late to care for the body that has carried you through life. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If you found value here, please like this video, subscribe for more, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future stories of hope and strength.